Good morning, everybody. Morning, Aaron. We are in Tzidkas Hatzadik, Shiur number 101, and an Os Ayin Vav. And here we come to a well-known and often repeated principle of Reb Tzadok, but Ein Beis Medrash B'li Chidush. Here he's machadish a little bit more, and the Mir Hashem will be machadish a little bit more too. Reb Tzadok says as follows: Be'es kishlein ha'adam. Whenever a person is on their way down, kishlein ha'adam, when a person is failing, kishlein ha'adam, yeda, you should know, sheba'oso eis, that it's exactly at that time, hu hachana la'oisai davar l'tayv, exactly in the area that you're failing, exactly in the moment that you're failing, exactly in the situation that you're failing, there is an opportunity for great growth. Simple pshat, as we've learned in the past, Reb Tzadok said this in Ayin Gimel, I believe, and so many times, but the simple pshat is that the Yetzer Hara is in a way wrongly named as a bad thing. It leads to bad things, that's why it's called the Yetzer Hara, but actually, like, the Yetzer Hara is an energy, and it's a very strong energy. When you get old and you don't have a Yetzer Hara as much, you can't do as many good things as you did when you had a Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Hara is that force within us. You always hear in the yeshivas, Yetzer Hara viltzach. You know, it always wants to do something. It always wants. The Yetzer Hatov is pretty laid back. You know, so the Yetzer Hara is that energy. So when the energy is pounding within and wants to do something very negative, you can think of your own chatoim. So it's at that point that you can take that very same energy, if you're trained and good, know how to do it, you can take that very same energy and turn it into a fantastic growth spurt. You know, I just give you an obvious example that comes to mind is, but let's say you're in a conversation and it's really appropriate to speak a little Lashon Hara. It's a simple avera that we're all kulam sholum ba'avak Lashon Hara. Everybody has this problem, and it's like rolling out of my brain into my throat through my voice, and it's just about to come out. So that's like, you know, there's such a cheshek to say to Yetzer Hara, you'll be more popular in the group, you think, or more accepted. But if at that moment, just a simple thing, if that moment you take all that energy, all that pent-up energy that's coming, and use it to say something good about a person, without a but at the end of the sentence, so you've done a tremendous amount of inner work. At that moment, you've done a tremendous amount of inner work because you've converted this negative, powerful negative energy into something good. And the bracha here is that when you do say something good about another person, at that moment, that's the right time to say something good. Again, no ifs, buts about it. That thing that you say will make erosion forever and ever. The people that the person who you're talking about, as an example, will forever remember that good point, because it came from a Yetzer Hara, it didn't come from a Yetzer Hatov. I myself will look at that person differently for everybody, forever, and I will also look at everybody differently forever. In other words, I've taken the energy of that Yetzer Hara, try it. It won't take long, even maybe right after the Shiur or during the Shiur. Like, it won't take long until this comes up. I'm not talking about avera of eating chazer, like it doesn't come up too much, but this does come up, and it's an example of how you can take of the Yetzer Hara being an energy. It says Reb Tzadok be'es kishlein ha'adam yeda This is God getting you ready for the big marathon, for the big win. And if you can do it, you can raise up at that moment to a very high level, just the same level down, which would be of the chet, listen, what was the whole story with the Egel Hazav? Build a golden calf, because we were in worship mode. We were by Kabbalas HaTorah, we were by Har Sinai. And we took it and we used it wrongly. So it was very powerful. We've worshipped Avodah Zarah throughout history. Unfortunately, go through Tanakh, all about Avodah Zarah. The whole book's about Avodah Zarah. But we've done this. But this was at Har Sinai, and it wasn't just that it was a chutzpah. There was a tremendous amount of worship energy that went into this. And I mentioned many times that when later on in history, when the Anshe Knesset Agdola said enough with the Avodah Zarah, it's out of control, and they by the Bayesheni, and they mevatel the Yetzer for Avodah Zarah. So at that moment, it was not it was a good thing that we stopped worshiping Avodah Zarah. Today, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, "Oh, where's my Avodah Zarah?" Usually. But what happened is we also lost the ability to worship on the same level that we used to when we had a Yetzer Hara Avodah Zarah. In other words, it lowered the temperature on the Yetzer Hara, and once you lower the temperature, you've also lowered the cheshek and the bren to do something really, really good. So, like Chazal, Anshe Knesset Agdola, if you look at that whole Gemara, they're really turning the dial back and forth on Avodah Zarah, on Gilui Arayos, even on Shvichas Damim, you're trying to get the right balance where it was like a laboratory experiment for the Anshe Knesset Agdola, where we have enough Yetzer Hara to do good, but we lose a bit of a cheshek to do bad. But in essence, the more Yetzer Hara, the better. The more, the better. And that's one of the yesodas that we keep coming back to. The amount of good that we can absorb at that point, if you can only turn it into good. And it's not that you've, as they say in the world of Musar, or this is understood from the world of Musar, that if you have a Yetzer Hara, push it away. Jump into cold water or something. Just push it away. No. That's for unprofessional. That's for amateurs. What you're meant to do is say, stop. What is it that I'm feeling now? And figure out how to use it for good. If it's the koach hadibur, whatever koach it might be, it can be used for good. Easy to say, hard to do. Now comes the chiddush, which I'd like to talk about for a little bit. Kamosha Amru, Chazal say, Bizohar Pinchas, in the Zohar of Pinchas. Think about Pinchas for a little bit in background. Ki be'es ha-mabul ha-yeruyim l'kabel ha-Torah. That, and this is a Zohar, so it's a Chazal, and you can find this even in Gemaras, that the Mabul, which was the biggest catastrophe in human history, Mabul, Hashem destroyed the world except for one family. He destroyed everything. What was going on then, in other words, let's put it in the terms that we're using, the dial of Yetzer Hara was so high that it would have, and the reason it was so high, it was just like Har Sinai, because Har Sinai we went ahead and made an Egel Hazav. Okay, retake. But we went ahead and made an Egel Hazav. By the Mabul, we could have made Miyodema. We could have had Kabbalas HaTorah right then and there. And that's how Chazal understand it. That it wasn't just like, oh my gosh, humanity failed. They became terrible. It was a huge amount of Yetzer Hara energy, which is mefurish in the Psukim, which I want to look at those Psukim, mefurish in the Psukim, that there was a huge amount of Yetzer Hara, and that Yetzer Hara could have that same koach of all the things that they did wrong, could have been mamish a Kabbalas HaTorah. V'haya az, the Zohar and the Gemara says, v'haya az Moshe. Now, Moshe wasn't then, Moshe was much later. But there would have been what was Moshe? What does it mean to be a Moshe? We're not talking about the man Moshe, I don't think, necessarily. But what we're talking about is there would have been, maybe Noach, there would have been a shaliach that would have been able to connect the Shemayim and the Aretz. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu did. There would have been a matzav where everybody was looking for this. Everybody was looking for, from the time of Brias Adam until 1656, which is when the 1,656 years later, when there was a Mabul. So everybody was looking for, why are we here? Why were we created? What is the other part of us? Are we the same as all the animals walking around the earth at this point? Is there something unusual about being a person? They could have gotten it then. They could have gotten them, and it would take a Moshe to be able to be machaber Shemayim va'aretz at that point, as he did much later on at Har Sinai. But back then, in 1656, from the creation of the world, there could have been a Moshe, and there could have been Matan Torah. The Gemara in Chulin, Kuf Lamed Tes. Let's just look at it inside. Bishagam hu ish. This is not in Noach. This is at the end of Bereshis. So let's just look at these psukim here, because it's so fascinating. Vayihi, Perek Vav of Bereshis. Vayiki hechel ha'adam la'roi val pnei ha'adama uvanois yuldu lahem. The population grew. There were daughters. Vayiru pnei Elohim es pnois ha'adam. Who are these pnei Elohim, and who's the benos ha'adam? Right. Nephilim. Nobility. The Medrash says that, just while we're here, B'nai Elohim were B'nai Shes. B'nai Ha'adam and B'nos Ha'adam were B'nai Cain. Cain killed Hevel, had children. Whole Bereshis is full of it. And then you had, the world was divided into two, the B'nai Cain and the B'nai Shes. So that's Chazal's pshat in the Medrash, the Vayiru B'nai Elohim es B'nos Ha'adam. Intermarriage. It could have been great achtos, no? It could have been a tikkun for Cain and Hevel. Okay, here they're seeing each other.
Isn't it some of they were supposed to stay apart? They weren't supposed to.
Right. Could have, when the Matan Torah happens, it's Vayichan Yisrael ki ish echad b'leiv echad. So now this could have been a Matan Torah, and the hakdama of it is that the B'nai Elohim and the B'nos Adam saw each other ki tovos hema, not bad. Vayikhu lahem nashim mikol asher b'charu, and everybody intermarried. Vayomer Hashem ki pasuk layadain ruchi ba'adam la'olam. What does that mean? Layadain ruchi ba'adam la'olam bishagam hu basar. Pasuk Pshat. V'haya yamav mea ve'esrim shana. There's truth to them saying Pasuk Pshat, but if you look in the Mikrois Gedolos, there's a lot of different Pasuk Pshats. And Lo Yadoin Ruchi Ba'adam La'olam, I'll tell you what I think Pasuk Pshat is, that, like Rashi says, Hashem says, I'm not going to get irritated with these people anymore. In other words, I'm not going to stop the world because of them. Why? Because Bishagam hu basar. Because B'shagam, when I went to Cheder, was translated Baler as Doch. Doch. Flesh. What does B'shagam means? Mean? Right? What does the word actually mean? What? B'shagam. The Rashi says that the right way to understand is bishegam. Put a segel under the shin. Bishegam hu basar means. There's a long arichas in Rashi here. Probably most people don't get involved with the diktuk here, including me. But what he is saying is, the way the Mefarshim explain Rashi, is that the human being, that's what we're talking about then, human beings, have multiple aspects to them. And they have an aspect of nefesh, of ruach, and neshama. Chaim is Meir on this in Shar Gimel. There's many aspects to a human being. One would expect that your neshama takes the lead. One would hope that it's the spiritual aspect of it, the part that's elam alakim of a person, that causes a person's decisions, right? But Hashem observed that also they have basar. Or as the Ramban puts it, Em gamkem roimsim al kol ha'adama kamay kol behema, kol hashrotzim, kol hashkotzim, kol haramosim. The Ramban says, self kol self, a human is an animal. We're a mammal, yeah? We do a lot of mammal things. And so what you're seeing here, according to Rashi and the Mefarshim of Rashi, is an overpowering, okay, I made them with flesh. Layadum ruchi ba'adam la'olam. I'm not going to make this into a permanent gzeira, just destroy the world forever, because b'shagam ubasar, because I created them to have flesh, to walk the face of the earth and to be humans, and humans will fail. Doesn't justify failing, but it also doesn't the chet doesn't justify utter destruction, complete destruction. V'hayu yamav me'av ashem shana. So a man will live 120 years. That's hence we say on me'av ashem all the time. Besonder in Sansik. Hayu yamav me'av ashem shana. The animalistic, the body. Bodies get old and they get deteriorated and they stop working and they stop functioning, just like any animal in the world, just like your house, just like everything, wird alt. The neshama doesn't get old, the neshama is eternal, but the body gets old, the reality of life. So 120 years, that's how much, that's the program here for this human that I've created. B'shagam hu basar, because sof kol sof is the way I would translate it. Sof kol sof hu basar, the hayu yama me'av asrim shana. Then it says, Hanephilim hayu ba'aretz b'yamim hahem. There were Nephilim, whatever that is. V'gam achrei chen asher yavoyu b'nei Elohim el b'nei Sodom v'yoldu lam hema gibarim asher me'olam anshe Shem. Mosaic Press, we just published a whole book about what the Nephilim are. A word from your sponsor. Let's just finish the last few psukim of Parshas Bereishis. Vayar Hashem ki rabba ras adam ba'aretz v'chol yetzer machshavos libay rak kol hayom. And there we go again. Person is a person. Rabba ras adam ba'aretz. When it comes to earthly things, we're not able to. Hence the Anshe Knesset Gdola, many generations later, were mevatel this year. They davened for to lower the temperature on this. Vayomer Hashem emches ha'adam asher barasem yal pnei ha'adama. We're going to do a restart on this creation because they went too far the other way. Me'adam ad behema, everything ad remes, ad oif hashamayim. Ki nichamti ki asisim, nichamti here means I regret that I created them. Last pasuk in Sefer Bereshis, Parshas Bereshis rather, is v'noach matzachein be'enei Hashem. Very, very important pasuk. V'noach matzachein be'enei Hashem. Noach, outstanding, was matzachein be'enei Hashem. So, Chazal say, Moshe Rabbeinu is merumaz in this pasuk, Gemara in Chulin. Moshe Rabbeinu ki yadua Moshe min haTorah minayin. How do we find Moshe in the Torah? What do you mean? It's called Torah's Moshe. The whole Shmos, the whole Vayikra, Bamidbar, all Dvarim. But min haTorah means, I'm guessing here, that Moshe min haTorah, like Haman is not, maybe you're not going to find in the Chumash, but Esther you're not going to find in the Chumash, but Mordechai you're not going to find in the Chumash, but Moshe. So the question is, min haTorah minayin, what's the makar? What's the makar of Moshe Rabbeinu? And the answer is that Bishagam, strange placement for finding a remez to Moshe Rabbeinu, Bishagam is Gematria, Rashi says Moshe. Right? Gimel and Beis is Hey and Moshe. Bishagam is Moshe. 2, 300, 3, and 40. So you have exactly the Gematria of Moshe. So here we find a remez Chazal point out, they bothered to point out, that it's more merumas, I mean, it's Gematria in the Chumash. Somebody asks you, the Gematrias in the Chumash. This is it. This is the Gematria in the Chumash, B'Shagam Hu Vasar. And it works out, says Chazal, V'hayu Yamav Me'av Asrim Shana. How long did Moshe Rabbeinu live? 120 years. So here you have the whole Moshe Rabbeinu in this pasuk, B'Shagam Hu Basar. So it's interesting, like, Moshe Rabbeinu was a Himmelmensch, he was kind of above everybody else. But B'Shagam, Moshe Hu Basar. He was, this is the way to read the pasuk, and the Zohar is Meirich on the fact that not only was Moshe there, why was Moshe there? Why was there such a Moshe-like person there? Because this could have been a time of Matan Torah. Does that sound strange to you? What do you mean Matan Torah? Where was Har Sinai? Where was everything? It's not strange. I don't think it's strange at all. It means to say that man for 1,600 years is looking for some direction here, is looking for some spirituality, is looking for some communication, clear communication from Hashem, is looking for a bris, a covenant between man and Hashem. What are we doing here? Where are we going? And a great time to have given the Torah. I don't know if it would look like the Torah in the Aron Kodesh. Maybe yes, maybe not. But a good time to have given the Torah would have been at the time, a time of the Mabul. So you really have in Chazal, Rav Tzadok is bringing in Chazal, but it's really in Chazal that the Mabul was a potentially very holy time. Yes, that's what you see. B'Shagam Hu Basar, and why? What first thing is, what's the point of Hu Basar? Because in order to combine the heaven and the earth, you need some earth here. So Moshe couldn't be just a malach. A Moshe-like figure can't be just like a malach that's coming down to the people and saying, okay, this is what you should do. It has to be a prophet. It has to be somebody who's able to connect heaven and earth. That's what Moshe has to be. So B'Shagam, Moshe, Hu Basar. He qualifies. Qualifies. He's a human, grew up in Egypt, out of town, and he became a great Navi, and Kimat became like something spiritually. Kimat like a Malach, but Kimat is not all the way. Sof kol sof. He was an Adam. V'hayu Yamav Me'av Asrim Shana, and he too, let's read it according to Chazal, he too had a lifespan, and the lifespan was 120 years. I want to go on a tangent, which isn't a tangent, because it's not a tangent here, it's a yesod. That the Rishonim speak out. You'll find this in the Hakdama of the Rosh. the pure. It's okay. I'll tell you. But in the Pirush HaRosh on the Chumash is in that the red volume of the Mikrois Gedolos.
Is this failure was necessary for Noah to provide the Chama in the Torah?
Was what necessary?
The fact that Noah became a Chama.
Oh, why his name was Noah?
Yeah, that there was a failure that they weren't ready, and so they need something.
Very nice. In the back of this particular, I don't think it's in the article. I don't think so. But in the back of this particular volume of the Mikrois Gedolos, you have Pirusha Rishonim Ala Torah. So the Das Kenim Balatosos, which is in here, but here he also has the Pirush HaRosh, which I don't know if it's there. It's not on the block, but it might be there in the back somewhere. So here the Rosh says Ayisoy. In this particular volume of the Rosh, done by scholars, they source it in Bamidbar at the beginning. But this is always called the Rosh, who pointed out this Yisoid, and that is this, that in the whole Sefer Bereshis, no dates are given. Meaning, what date was the Akedah? What month was the Akedah in? So we have some Chazals, but what date was the Bris Ben Absarim? What date was Lech Lecha? What date? All the fantastic stories of Bereshis. That's the most fundamental stories of Klal Yisrael. Well, we don't have a date. We can figure out the age, and the Seder Olam figured out the age. Like I said, the Mabul was in 1656. But let me talk. there are ages in the beginning of Bereshis. It tells us the different ages and the different doros, and it's all charted out for you. You can look in Art Scroll or the Arya Kaplan Chumash and see all the different. You can figure out the years, but I'm talking about Aleph Tammuz or Beis Nisan. This you have from HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem in Shmos on. Now, all of a sudden, the dates became very important. The 14th of Nisan became the day of Yetzias Mitzrayim, etc., etc., etc. There's a mole dates from all through the Chumash, starting with HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, with the exception of the Mabul. Let's not talk about the exception yet. Why were there no dates? Why were dates only become important by a Chodesh Hazeh Lachem? So, simple pshat is there was no such thing. How are you counting? Chodesh Hazeh Lachem is telling us about the moon. The deeper pshat, in it is that time is a earthly measuring device. In the world wasn't measured in time per se. What time is it? What date is it? What's the tarikh? When measuring the world with time in the Torah, maybe they did have a way of saying time. Measuring time in the Torah was a marriage of heaven and earth. That's what happened, and that only took place with the Bria, if you will, of Bnei Yisrael. Once we got together as a people, so the very first thing that the first mitzvah they had is HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem. Now keep track of the time, keep track of the dates. Meaning, this is another step of what we were talking about 5 minutes ago. An extremely important step in creating holiness and spirituality in this world. So, when is Pesach going to be? There's a time, Chodesh HaRishon. It's gonna happen. That's why it's called Chodesh HaRishon. If we always call Tishrei Chodesh HaRishon. So Chazal say Chodesh HaRishon, Rishon LeMoadim, but that's when time started. Of course, it was Chodesh HaRishon. It could be that the Egyptians had some way of counting time. I'm not familiar, but as far as we go, as far as the Kedushas Hazman, the Rambam called the Sefer Zmanim. In terms of Moedim Uzmanim L'Sasain. The Kedushas Hazman came from Achodesh Hazelachem, with the exception of multiple mentions of time with the Mabul. But almost Bishnas Sheish Me'o Shana L'Chaye Noach. Noach was 600 years old. B'chodesh Hasheni b'shivasar yoyim l'chodesh. It was the second month, 17th of the month. B'yom hazen nifku kol ma'yonos time rabba v'arubos hashamayim niftachu. That's when it started to rain. Later on, it talks about where it stopped raining. Also says a time. Atanach hateva b'chodesh hashvi b'shivasar yoyim l'chodesh al harei Ararat, 12 months, right? On Ararat Hill. And then it was, it keeps on going on. So detailed in the calendar, like let's keep track of the calendar. The only place you find this in Sefer Bereshis, Amos or not Amos? The only place you find it in Sefer Bereshis is by the Mabul. So why is this an exception? So it was before HaChodesh HaZelochem. There's a few things, by the way, that are before HaChodesh HaZelochem, which are exception. For instance, Hashem told Noach, take 2 behemoth Torah and take 7 behemoth Torah and 2 behemoth Meir of each one. So, if I were Noach, like, what is a behemoth Torah? What is a behemoth Meir? We only know that in Parsha Shmini. It was very clear somehow. So Chazal, maybe this is what they mean when they say, well, they came by themselves. Boyim alateva, like who looked at hoofs? Who looked at which animals are chewing their cud or not chewing their cud? Who looked at the simonim of ophos, so complicated, or dugim, the snapper kaskesses? Where do you know this? And yet here we are, not only with dates, but with actual kashrus laws in Parshas Noach as a bit of a pliyat summa. And then the other unusual thing here is that Hashem gave Noach such exact dimensions for the teva, which does not seem to be important. Well, does a flotilla have shiurim? Why is it so important? It's only place you'll find such a thing is by the Mishkan. Exactly, Amavachetzi. Everything has to be exactly the way, according to the shiurim that Hashem told us for the teva. But that which carried the Aron Kodesh was also called the teva, and that which carried Moshe Rabbeinu was Tevas Noach. Tevas Noach, Tevas Moshe, put into the water. Measurements, kashrus laws, dates. It stands out in the whole Sefer Bereshis, the story of Noach, and so many drushes we have on Noach. Noach is like some Malay drushes, and perhaps most important, is that the introduction that we have to this Noach fellow, who we don't know much about, by the way, except that he was the founder of humanity. But the introduction that we have is V'Noach Matzachein B'nei Hashem. If you'll look, I just marked the entire conversation. I'll spare you the psukim right now for a moment. The entire conversation between Moshe Rabbeinu and Hashem at the Sneh and at the second meeting was, God are my motzei chen beinecha. Clear. Look at the beginning of Shmos. And if you look in Kisisa, let's look in Kisisa for a second, where Moshe is advocating for the Jewish people after the Ohel. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, well, first, Vayomer Moshe el Hashem, Atoi Meir Lai, Halasam Azev, Atoloi Datani, Asher Tishlachim, Yata Marti Daticha V'Shem, Gamotsasa Chen Be'ena. You told me that I'm Motzei Chen. Think Noach Motzei Chen Be'enei Hashem. V'ata, Im no Motzasi Chen Be'enecha, if I'm Motzei Chen, Hodieni Noas Trachecha Ve'duachal Amanam Sachen Be'enecha. So now let's tell me your ways, and I'll be this Baal Chen that you're talking about. Ureiki Amcha Hagoy Azeh. And then he says, this in Kisisa, Vayom Bubamei Voda. Moshe Rabbeinu continues.
This is after the Chida.
Yeah. And Hashem says, I'll come back, but I'm going to send a shlich. Vayomer Elohim ein panecha holchim, al taleinu mizeh. Ubamei yivoda, asks Moshe Rabbeinu, Bamei yivoda eifoi ki matzasi chen beinecha. Ani v'amecha. How do I know that there's Metzias chen? But when did this become like the Yud Gimel Ikrim, to be matzah chen beinei Hashem? You have to come with us. We have to be different, a chosen people from all the people who are walking there. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Gama davar hazeh asher dibarta es. What you asked, I will do. Why? Ki motzasa chen be'enai, ve'doacha b'shem. Okay, I have chen. Already knows Kodecha, etc. Noach matzachein b'einei Hashem. This is more than a suggestion. I believe this is the pshat. Noach matzachein b'einei Hashem. Moshe is matzachein b'einei Hashem. It was all about Metzias chen b'einei Hashem, and it was all about Hashem saying to Noach, Ani, this is already in Parshas Noach, Inni mevi es hamabul mayim al aretz l'shachis kol basar asher boi ruach chayim mitachas hashamayim kol asher ba'aretz yigva v'hakimoisi esprisi itach. I made a bris, right? A bris means a deal. That's what it means in English. A bris means a deal. I make a commitment to this, you make a commitment back to me. That's called a covenant. That is a brit.
Politics.
Politics. The art of the deal. Here you have Moshe Rabbeinu and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Noach asking, Chazal speak this out, look in the Medrash Rabbah, Hashem, you're going to destroy the whole world. Where is the bris? Brisi, Shemayim V'aretz, where's the bris? So you're not going to destroy the world. Hakimoisi es brisi itach. Uvasa el hateva. Ata uvanecha v'ishtecha u'neshei bonecha itach. And kosher food, which is all part of the bris, all part of the deal, the promise, the covenant. I don't want to say the promise because bris is always called like the promise, but a bris is you do this, we do that. We do bris milah. That's a covenant with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything's a bris. So I saw this. Let me share it with you. Something I never knew. After Noach came out of the Teva, so he was makabel to the Sheva Mitzvahs Pnei Noach. Chazal have an argument. I think Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda, was he makabel just the last of the Sheva Mitzvahs Pnei Noach? Was it all the Sheva Mitzvahs Pnei Noach? I saw in Chazal, I found this in the Torah Shlema, Rav Kasher, the Eitzim Min HaTeva. He says this was the whole world was Makabel Hashem and Mrs. Noach. The whole world means him and his family were Makabel. But it was fascinating to me. It was a tekes. It wasn't just like, oh, that happened then. No, it was a tekes. The whole family of man came together, and there was a mini Har Sinai that took place after the Mabul, and it was Kabbalas HaTorah, as it was in those days. Kabbalas HaTorah meant Kabbalas Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. So I say like this, wow, that what happened here was that there was a bris with the whole world, got narrowed down to anybody who's matzachein b'nei Hashem. Okay, Noach, you're the man. Noach matzachein b'nei Hashem. Before we even start saying Parshas Noach, we say Noach matzachein b'nei Hashem. And with you I could do a bris. With you I can make a covenant. Here's what the covenant about. The bris continued to develop, ultimately ending up with Jews have this bris. Netzach Yisrael lo yishaker. We have the bris that will be here forever. Not Romans, not Babylonians, not Greeks. Yadua. We're not Americans, not Canadians. We're here. We're here to stay. Nope. B'nai Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So B'nai Avraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov, there's a lot of interesting things happen along the way, and they all feel very permanent, but they're not. They're not permanent. And it's not even everybody who believes in God. It's a family thing. It's a family thing. Could be that the sincere goyim that believe in Hashem will convert b'sof yomah, b'sof yomei olam. But here's my, I don't want to get off track. A bris that started with the creation of the world, went to Noach matzachein b'nei Hashem, continued to the bris avos, bris ben absarim, mitzias chein, ended up at Har Sinai, and Moshe saying, but matzachein b'midbar, right? Where is the mitzias chein? He says, okay, I'm with you on that. There's going to be a mitzias chein, and it's going to be with the Jewish people. So, and there was this tekes, a whole ceremony that took place after they came out of the ark. And well, Ben Shkoimel, no, yes, I don't know, maybe they did Ben Shkoimel, but that's not one of the nine mitzvahs we know of, is it? But what they did was Kabbalas HaTorah. They were ba'achtus for a second. They Shem Cham Yafes ganze Mishpacha. They were even the animals, but they were there. And Atem Nitzavim Hayoim Kulchem, which Moshe Rabbeinu talks about the Hakel at the end of the Torah before he dies, before Yisrael goes into Eretz Yisrael to complete the bris even further, was this Matan Torah. So therefore, if there was a Matan Torah, it becomes very clear why Bishagam, who Basar, why Gematria of Moshe has to be there, the spirit, if you will, of Moshe has to be there. And what this bris was all about, was finding our neshama, finding our purpose in life, our raison d'etre, our tafkid, this was what took place, and we understood that, and more than that, like the connecting of Shamayim va'aretz, and this took place because Noach was a matzachein b'nei Hashem. This took place after the Yetziah min ha-teva, and the teva had midos, because midos became a thing. Once there's a Torah, midos becomes a thing, and time becomes a thing. Do you understand this? In other words, time, measuring of time, starts with the Chodesh HaZelachem. So, except for in Noach, where you had a mini mountain Torah. It's clear. Pshat. It's Pshat according to Chazal, B'shagam hu basar.
What is matzachin? What does that mean? And why is that the starting point?
What do you think? Esther was Yalas Chain. Oh, what's what?
What do you mean matzah chain? Why is he fun?
So a chain, I'll tell you a little bit I know about chain, which you also know, and that is the chain is not something you work on getting. A mitzvah is also not something you work on finding. Let's go out and find the mitzvah. You have a Geiger counter, but is that nobody. The word matzah means that you chance upon something. You can't. Let's go mitzvah. I guess in modern Hebrew, you go to a flea market and you find a mitzvah, but it's not a mitzvah. So therefore, yogata umatzasa. Simon, right? That you have to do amelus b'Torah, but anybody who learns Torah knows that ultimately the pshat is it's a mitzvah, which is a mitzvah that comes after the yagir. So yogata matzasa, or if somebody says yogati v'loy matzasa, altam, or that's a gift from Shemayim. So matzah always refers to a gift of Shemayim. So does chayin, because chayin is lashon chinam. Chayin is something which is not something you can do with, with makeup, or even by working out in the gym, or surgery. You can do all those things and still has no chayin. It's so interesting to me while we're talking about it that always like too often couples, just come to talk and they want to get divorced. The Torah allows for this. We're not Christians. The Torah allows for divorce. But what's the criteria for divorce? We all know, you burnt my eggs. We all know the Chazal. But what the Torah says is, if it should come to pass that she's not matzah chen b'nei bala, b'nei isha. What's lashon? B'nei isha. Somebody remember? She's not matzah chen in his eyes anymore. I mean, for heaven's sakes, not matzah chen. You have a cute little kid, matzah chen, but she has to be chen. She has to be like Esther, yalas chen. Otherwise, divorce her. So, I believe the pshat in this is Chazal give all kinds of shiurim of when you're not allowed to get divorced without purpose. By the way, just forget about it. You're not allowed. Even if you go to the Rabbanut, and you open a tick for divorce, you have to write purpose. If you don't write reason. If you don't write reason, so you can't get divorced. You have to have some kind of reason. But a legitimate reason might be that she just doesn't have that chayin. Assuming it's a man talking. By the way, in most cases, it's the woman talking. It's an interesting switch around here, and most women want to get divorced, in my little bit of experience. But what it means is that you get married, maybe even before you get married, but certainly when you get married, there's a gift of chayin that exists. And that chayin, that sparkle of chayin, that light of chayin, you could see it under the chuppah. If you're zocheh to stand under the chuppah with a young couple, you see there's a chayin. That chayin is what makes it work for Admei V'Asrim Shana, because what happens is it's people are so irritating. It's so difficult to man, woman, it's so difficult to live with another person, shava b'shava. Kedarach b'nei Torah, shava b'shava. It's a difficult thing. I mean, I don't know, in the movies maybe, this but what, so funny, I just an example that the air conditioning on my car broke yesterday, so there's this mobile mechanic that I call great, recommend him highly. If I remembered his name, I would tell you. Fantastic guy. Comes, fixes your car. No. What? Gutstein, yeah. Surely. Great guy. Great guy. Great human being. Now that he says his name, I don't know if I can tell the stories. I was asking him should I invest in the car because my car is all bashed up. So, like the frame, the body of it is all bashed up. There's no. So he said, don't throw it out yet. Let me see what I can do. This is Russian. Fixed the air conditioning in 10 minutes. It didn't need any big investment. So I said, it's all bashed up. So he says, I know, my wife does this too. His wife, your wife, my wife, now there's two interesting things about this, which I pointed out to them. One is probably men bash up cars as much as women. But in our minds, this is the way we look at it. He drove into the fence again. But the fact of the matter is, everybody's bashing up cars because it's tzafuf over here in Eretz Yisrael. But it's completely forgivable because of this phenomenon called chayin. And when there's chayin, everything is okay. It's okay. You can get a little bit irritated for a minute, but it's okay. It's only money. It's only a car. It's only 80,000 shekel for it. No big deal. But the thing is chayin. So like the criteria for chayin is lashon chinam, and the Gra explains by Noach it was skilu chinam because he didn't do anything bad, but he didn't do anything so great either. It wasn't. It says he was a tzaddik, but we know all the criticism of Noach, but he had a chayin. Avraham Avinu had this gift of chayin. Anybody who had a bris in Klal Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael had a gift of chayin. And Moshe Rabbeinu discussed with Hashem over back and forth. Is there chayin or is there not chayin? Are we on or are we not on? Hence comes Reb Tzadok and he says that here. Take a look at this. Let me just get back to the Reb Tzadok. Make a turnaround. Look at this. The Mabul was the biggest catastrophe in human history, more than Hiroshima. It was the biggest destruction in human history. But that Kufa was the time of B'Shagam Hu'ish. That Kufa was the time of Kabbalah Satar, and there actually was a Kabbalah Satar. There actually was post Mabul, Yotzami Teva, and at that time there were no Hague. At that time, the Torah tells us with measurements, with measurements, and with Behemat Torah, Behemat Meah, and time, and all the different things. So how could the worst time in history be the best time in history? How could it be? Now we messed up. So now the bris, which is all Matan Torah is. I mean, to reduce Matan Torah, but what the importance of Matan Torah was a bris. That was the importance of the whole Shavuot story, that we had a bris with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You are my people. It started at the Yam Suf, Zakeli, Anvehu, and it went to Matan Torah. That was the bris. The bris. This covenant took place with Noach all the way. So how could it be that the worst time in history was the best time in history? Because kachaza, the power of the people at that time that were able to exercise such chatoim. Wouldn't it be nice if even once in a while somebody would look at our own children this way? Like the chesaron, kid has no chesaronus, it's blah, but it's the chayin which will show that deep inside there's good here. Deep inside there's Yetzer Lev Ha'adam Rami Nurav, which is good. Yetzer Lev Ha'adam Rami Nurav, which is a good thing. It means there's a tremendous amount of energy here, and I'm going to harness the energy until we get something good over here. So Rabbi Tzadok says, let's just do a few more words. B'shagam ayin sham. Umayim Hainu Torah. And the David HaMelech said, "V'heim hafachuhu l'mayim hazedonim." Mayim, he's talking about the mayim of the Mabul. Yeah, we came out of Mitzrayim. Vayelech shloisha yamim v'loy matzah mayim. There was no mayim. On this, also the Gemara Bava Kama says, "Ein mayim el Torah." On that, ein mayim el Torah. So what does it mean, ein mayim? They were thirsty, but Chazal understood they were also thirsty for find their neshama. What do we leave Mitzrayim for? Later on, by the Mayim Hamarim, they were complaining about the Mayim Hamarim. Moshe Rabbeinu took an eitz, and he threw an Mayim to go Mayim. So the Zohar says the eitz was eitz Chaim Hilama Chazikim Ba. Eitz HaTorah. What everybody's right? Le'rov lalachem, le'tzama lamayim, ki'im lishmayas dvar Hashem. V'heim hafachuhu. Now you could take this. David HaMelech points out, talking about the Mabul. Heim hafachuha lamayim hazedonim. Ba'atayra he tachlis kiyum ha'olam v'shebishvilai nivra. Why? It sounds like a little bit too yeshivish to say, oh, the whole world was created for Torah. No, the whole world was created to make a connection, to be Makadesh the world. That's and you can't do it without Torah. The Torah is the connection between Shemayim va'aretz. So the whole world doesn't work correctly if it's not connected to its spiritual device, or a person doesn't work correctly if So I mention this all the time because it's an important covenant I have every day. You get up in the morning and you say, Asher Yatzar Zadam, everything's working, the kavim, not only bathroom stuff, just even, my heart's working, my kidney's working, my liver's working, the kavim, chalulim, all over the body. Your blood is flowing. You say to Asher Yatzar, you thank Hashem, okay, you get up in the morning, look, it's working, more or less. And then immediately we say, okay, now let's get to the next step, which is, what about my neshama? Is that working? A little trickier. So here we start to talk about it. Okay, neshama shenasata bi, right after Asher Yatzar, the way we do it al pi halacha. Neshama shenasata bi, atavarasa, you went through the world of Bria, ata yitzarta, went through the world of Yitzira, ata nafachta bi, came into me, to Mishamri B'Kirbi, and this Kozman Shanashama B'Kirbi Moida Ani Lefonecha, that you can't say. You find this all over. You find it in Tachman also. Ein B'Mavas Ichrecha B'Shol Mi Yoide Loch. You can't give Haidah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu without your neshama, without being alive in your neshama. You have to have the two things working together. Ein B'Mavas Ichrecha B'Shol. Nobody can say Haidah. We get our neshama, our body is robotic, so we get our neshama, and now we can give Kozman Shah Neshama B'Kirbi, as long as the neshama is in my body, Maida Ani Lefanecha. I can say Haidah. Such an important thing. This is a human ability to say Haidah. Malach can't give Haidah l'cher. You have to be a human to give Haidah. It's a special gift of what happens when you thank Hashem for something. What happens is you've just connected your body and your soul. You've just connected the Shemayim and the Aretz. That's what happens when you give Haidah. Haidul Hashem Kitayv, you've just connected. In Hallel, once we say Haidul Hashem Kitayv, that opens up the gates to say Ana Hashem Hashiach. And like first comes always Haidah, and then immediately after Hodah comes Bakasha, even when we make brachas. First comes Haidah, then comes Bakasha, Ana Hashem Hashiach, Ana Hashem Atzlichana. So this is the Seder HaAvodah of not just ourselves, but of all of world history. All of world history, this is Rav Tzadok is pointing out, that the Mabul was the worst of all times, and therefore the best of all times. Maybe we'll stop here. Let's do a quick finish next week. Yom Tov.